Hey everyone, it's Allie, and with patch 3.26 right around the corner, it's time to talk about my build for this Leaguestart Poison's Concoction Pathfinder. With literally no nerfs or changes happening to it, Poison's Concoction is going to be one of the strongest season starters you're going to be able to play that is going to very easily hold your hand all the way from level 1 up to Ubers and whatever sort of endgame content you'd like to do. This is a build that is a tried and tested build. People have been playing it for eons and eons at this point, and it is just a build that is guaranteed to work under pretty much every circumstance. We are going to be playing this as a Pathfinder over a Slayer or an Assassin because personally I feel like this is going to be the greatest option for new players, and in my opinion, Pathfinder gives you the best blend of both DPS, utility, movement speed, and tankiness that's gonna honestly make it feel very comfortable. This build will have a extremely comfortable progression curve from level 1 to endgame where your upgrades make sense, they're simple to get, and there's quite a lot of different steps and quite a lot of different paths you can take to get there, allowing you to basically pick and choose exactly what you'd like to do in terms of your upgrades. With the build guide I'm going to be providing you on this build, you are going to literally have your hand be held significantly harder than I've ever done so before. My goal here is to make this be the PConc guide and hopefully be something that should very easily ease a lot of new players into the game. And I put a significant amount of time into this path of building to make it as perfect as possible. So I please implore for you to read through it, look through it, and see if any of your questions are answered here. Once you do get past endgame, there will be an early game section that's going to go over pretty much every single major topic in terms of how to put the build together and the items you're looking for at Leaguestart. And from there, once you have everything, there'll be a mid-game and endgame section that'll also go into detail about further upgrades. With that said, I will also be playing this build myself on launch, so feel free to come by my Twitch and ask me any questions there or come play with me yourself. And a day after this releases, there's going to be a leveling VOD, which will be linked in the description below once it does come out, of me doing a run from level 1 to Act 10, where I'm going to basically narrate everything I do. So if you'd like to literally have your hand be held and level directly with me, I'm going to be able to provide you with exactly that. Now, some people might ask, why Pathfinder over Slayer? Realistically, if you're just looking for a week 1 build and you're looking to play another build directly after, you should just pick whatever you want to have a high level character of, whether it's a duelist or a ranger. If you're looking for a build to optimize and min-max and play quite deep into maybe the second or third week, Pathfinder's going to have a slightly better early game due to Flasks making res capping and early maps really easy, while Slayer's going to have a little bit of a stronger mid game. Pathfinder will as well once he gets ball in. And then finally, in the end game, Pathfinder would be 40 to 50% tankier than a Slayer while having the same, if not more, DPS. With all that said, let's get into the build guide and talk about everything they're going to want to know. The first thing we should talk about is going to be leveling and how to get to maps. Now, for Act 1, you are going to have to play as Caustic Arrow, which should be pretty easy to do, and genuinely, it's going to be the hardest part of the build. Once you get to level 12, you're going to get yourself a Poison's Concoction from the Act 1 town, and you're basically off to races, as PConc is an amazing leveling skill through the acts. The major thing you need to pay attention to while leveling is your life flask. What this means for you is you need to pay attention to the recovery number at the top of your life flask and to constantly upgrade to newer and newer life flasks as you're going. With that said, you should also aim to always have 2 life flasks on you through the whole campaign, just to make sure you always have charges ready to go for it. For your Ascendancy points, you're going to want to follow this order. The only thing to really discuss here is what to do with your 4th Ascendancy point, whether you pick up Nature's Boon or Master Surgeon. If you're not a fan of Master Surgeon, you can simply pick up Nature's Boon for a little bit of movement speed and a tiny little bit of extra defenses, but I highly recommend to give Master Surgeon a go. What this does is if your life flask is still active and it still has a little bit of duration, it doesn't just turn off the moment you hit full life, it'll keep going until the duration is actually over. This basically means you have a permanent 1000 life regen per second, and the mid game with Tides of Time, this will turn to 2.5 and eventually 3,500 life regen per second, literally making you regen your full health bar every single second, which feels amazing. One final thing I need to mention here in relation to leveling is I highly recommend, especially if you're a new player, for you to go do Heist as you're leveling through this build. In the description below, there'll be a whole guide that's going to go over exactly how to do Heist on Leaguestart. And in the Act 6 portion of the notes section in the path of building, there'll also be a guide there describing exactly what to do. What heisting during a Leaguestart means is you buying contracts starting in Act 6 all the way to Act 10, and then you spending an hour or two once you do get to Act 10, right before you kill the final boss to go into Endgame, and just run through all those heist contracts to generate around 100 to 200 Chaos Orbs, allowing you to have a super easy progression all the way up until tier 16. If you're a new player and if you just want to have the comfiest time possible, please do a Heist Leaguestart, because at the same time, it's also going to teach you what is arguably one of the single best things for you to possibly do at the start of every single season. Moving on to the actual build itself once we get to endgame. Now, your first goal, as soon as you get to maps, whether you did Heist or not, is to go and grab yourself Poison's Concoction of Bouncing. This is a Transfigure gem, which is going to basically be seen as an upgrade to normal PConc. While normal PConc will shoot all of your flasks flasks in a giant line all at the same time. Bouncing will instead take all the projectiles you would have thrown and make your flask bounce that many times. This overall is going to give you better overlaps than normal PConc would, while at the same time using less flash charges make it even easier for you to use Master Surgeon. Overall, it's literally just an upgrade in terms of every single metric, and it's by far the single most important thing for you to get. And I would recommend for you to do that as long as it's not worth some absurd amounts like 50, 60, 70 plus chaos on day 1 or day 2. With this, you can simply just immediately slap it on and swap your supports over to greater multiple projectiles and greater volley, and you're going to have an absolutely amazing time all the way up until tier 16. On top of that, there's going to be quite a few uniques that you're going to want to be looking out for as you're progressing up the tiers and to spend the rest of your heist money on. For our main defensive layers going up until tier 16, we're going to be primarily focusing on our flasks, given we're playing at Pathfinder, and on getting ourselves a lightning coil. Lightning coil is going to convert 50% of all physical damage you take into lightning damage. This means that the 50% is then going to be checked against your lightning res instead of your physical damage reduction, and what we're going to be doing is getting ourselves a topaz flask, which is not only going to take care of the minus 60 res on lightning coil, but also put us at 82% max lightning res. Your flasks are going to be very important because, well, you're a Pathfinder. As a Pathfinder, you need to see your flasks as actual item, unlike how every other Ascendancy in the game sees their flasks as temporary buffs. With Nature's Adrenaline, it is very easy for us to have 100% uptime on every single one of our flasks, and you're going to really want to make sure you go and grab yourself a Quicksilver, a Jade, and a Topaz flask as soon as you can, and then go to your crafting bench and use the flask craft on them to automate them with the use when charges reach full enchant. On top of that, you're going to really want to make sure to find yourself a Replica Sorrow Divine as soon as you can. As PConc, especially as we push into the late game, we're going to have some pretty horrible mana problems, and Replica Sorrow Divine is going to completely take care of all that for you by giving you Eldritch Battery, which makes it so your energy shield protects your mana, allowing you to basically use your energy shield as extra mana. Because we're going to also have Master Surgeon giving us 1,000 plus life regen at all times, Replica Sorrow Divine will also just give you 1,000 ES a second, effectively make you have infinite mana when it comes to casting. And this should be your number 2 priority after getting your PConc bouncing. From there, there's a few more unique items that are really worthwhile for you to look out for. And Asaf's Gentle Touch are a reasonable price, somewhere around 20, 30, 40 chaos. I highly recommend for you to get yourself a pair, as that is going to be an item that we're going to be looking to upgrade into for the mid game. But if you can get it earlier, that's great. And if not, get yourself a Mark of Submission for anywhere between 3 to 5 chaos and put your Temporal Chains gem inside of it to have your temp chains basically be autocast for you every time you hit something. Lastly, if you can get yourself a Leaper's Alms, this shield gives you about a 20% DPS increase, which is incredible and is going to be our best friend up until we get to the mid game where we're going to be purchasing as Valen. And if you can grab yourself a Fury Valve, it is an amazing amulet that gives you +2 projectiles, which is about 10% DPS increase, and a little bit of extra resistances, making res capping even easier. For the rest of your gear, you're not really looking for anything special. You're likely going to have a little bit of an issue with strength, so you're going to need to grab yourself a few strength rolls everywhere. And because we're going to be getting ourselves an elemental resistance roll on one of our flask suffixes and automating it, you're not going to need to find that many resistances on all of your gear. If you do need a little bit of help, you can choose to not run a Jade Flask and run a Bismuth Flask instead, completely fixing all of your resistances with no issues. And from there, simply just try to grab yourself as much life as possible on every single one of your items. One thing to mention here is going to be spell suppression. In our builds, to start off, we're going to be getting 100% spell suppression by simply picking up Invenerate, Entrench, and the 15% chance to spell suppress if all of your core items have evasion rating on them, mastery. With these 3 things, you'll be at 100% spell suppression chance, but once you do upgrade to Asnafs, they are not going to have evasion on them anymore, meaning this mastery is not going to work. You are going to need to find yourself a tier 4 or higher spell suppression roll on both your helmet and your boots to get you to 100%. This is really important, as spell suppression is a major defensive layer in the late game, and you really need to be at 100 at all times. With all that, you should have a really easy time all the way up until tier 16, and from there, we should start discussing what your next upgrades are going to be. As you're going to be pushing into your mid-90s, you're most likely going to have yourself quite a bit of money lying around as you're progressing, and it's going to be time to look into getting cluster jewels for a setup. For cluster jewels, honestly, it's pretty simple, as we're just going to be self-crafting all of our cluster jewels, as that is going to make it significantly easier. There'll be crafting guides in the notes section for all this, including links to buy everything they need, so that should hopefully make everything really easy for you. For our large cluster jewel, we are simply looking to grab ourselves both Unwaveringly Evil and Wicked Paul, as these are the only 2 nodes that we really care about, and we're going to be choosing to ignore the node at the end, as we're simply just looking to path to jewels jewels to grab 2 medium cluster jewels. For 2 medium cluster jewels, you're looking for a Flask cluster and a projectile cluster. On your Flask cluster, you're specifically looking to grab yourself Spike Concoction and literally any other useful notable on the second node. There's going to be a trade link for all these. It's just not worth crafting given there's so many useful options. And then for our projectile cluster, we're going to be looking for follow through and repeater. These should be fairly reasonable for you to craft, with the large cluster jewel costing a few divine to do so, and then the 2 medium cluster jewels most likely being under 1 divine each. Around this point is also when you're going to be looking to add some specters into your build. You might be asking yourself, Allie, why are we adding minions in here? And well, Dark Marionettes are just an amazing utility specter for us to have. What these specters do that is special is, well, they revive on death, and that's about it. What we could do with them is we can link them to a Guardian's Blessing, which will then make them start burning, but while they're burning, they're going to give us access to whatever aura we link to our Guardian's Blessing. This means we can set up a Ray Spectre Guardian's Blessing Malevolence setup and have them give us a Malevolence aura up until the point that they die. On our Life Flask, we are ideally going to try and put the Rand's X% of life recovery to minions roll, which should hopefully be able to out-regen their Guardian's Blessing degen, making their uptime be significantly better. We're still okay with them dying because with the Dark Marionettes, they're simply going to revive themselves 4 seconds later. Your Malevolence should basically always be permanently active. This might not feel amazing, as unfortunately GG nerfed these to have a 4-second respawn instead of a 1-second respawn last season. And if that is the case, and they do not feel the greatest, you can simply just choose to only activate your Malevolence on bosses as an extra DPS button and just completely ignore it for mapping, and honestly you're not going to need it given how comfy your mapping is at game. After you've done all of those upgrades, it's time to finally look into some bigger upgrades moving into the mid game. Your first major upgrade, once you have your cluster jewels and all of your gear sorted out, is going to be looking for Tides of Time. Tides of Time is going to be basically the bread and butter of our build, as this build, well, just does a lot. With Tides of Time, you're going to be looking to grab yourself a 1 or 2 utility flask per 3 seconds version of the build, as you do not need a 3. The 3rd utility flask charge is completely useless, and this will allow you to now have 100% uptime on your flasks with the reduced duration increased effect prefix. Up until this point, we're going to be running the just increased duration prefix or nothing at all on them, as we do not have enough flask stats to be able to sustain 100% uptime with the increased effects hybrid. Well, Tides of Time is just going to completely fix all this on its own, and because it's going to be doubling the total healing of our life flask, this is going to give us an absurd amount of regen, easily allowing us to regen over 50% of our health every single second while our life flask is active. After Tides of Time, there's quite a lot of different mid-game upgrades they can go and chase down. Just to not information overload you, we're going to save all those things for a future update video in about 2 to 3 days post-launch, where we're going to be talking about all these different mid-game upgrades, the order you should possibly look for them in, and most importantly, talking about Zvalin, which is going to be the major showpiece of the mid-game setup. All of this information is still going to be provided in the Path of Building notes section ahead of time if you'd like to look through it and try to read through some of it. But if you'd like me to specifically explain all of it to you in detail, then do be sure to be on the lookout for the video that's going to be coming out a few days later. One thing I do want to mention is that you don't have to play PConc as a super late game build. I'm simply going to choose to do that because I like min-maxing my builds, but do feel free at this point to simply just go reroll into another build and use PConc as a jumping off point. Typically, that's what most people use Poison's Concoction for. They simply play it for the first week or so, make currency, and then jump into another build. And if that's all you needed the build for, I hope you had a great time with it, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you're having fun with PConc and you want to keep pushing it further, I'm excited to show you how to min-max it. It should be a really fun time. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I also stream on Twitch every single day, so feel free to come by Twitch and ask me of your questions there. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and I hope you have a wonderful Leaguestart and have the easiest possible time you'll ever have in PoE. And I'll see you all in the next video.